Welcome to episode 6 of season 2 of Ed's Not Dead. I'm Robbie Dodd. I'm joined by my co-host, Mr. Peter Crable.
What's up, man?
What's up? And Mr. C.H. Siddons.
Hello. It's good to be back.
How are you guys?
Doing great. Glad to be back.
Good to see you. You can find me at RW Dodd on Twitter, Mr. Crabes at Peter Crable, and Mr. Sids at C.H. Siddons. You can also find Ed's Not Dead at Ed's Not Dead PC. Did I get it all covered? Because I'm a little out of practice.
Facebook. We're on the Facebook.
Right. And our website?
And our website, edsnotdead.com.
Okay.
And if you're listening right now and you're in the car, or you're running or walking or just sitting around, we want you to go on iTunes.
And leave us some feedback.
We would love you to just give us a couple stars.
Give us some stars.
Like at least 3.
Seems reasonable.
Maybe 4.
All right. Let's
5 if you're into it.
So thanks for listening. Thanks for tuning in. It's great to be back. We had a nice winter shutdown, which we'll get to in just a second, but we have a terrific show tonight. We are going to be exploring a possible future strike, teacher strike in California.
Yeah. Could, by the time this episode comes out, it could be a current strike.
A reality.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
So that's going to be interesting. And we have a special guest, Mr. Sids, correct?
That's right. Yeah, we do. We have Erica Buddington from the Langston League, founder of the Langston League, a curriculum company based in New York City. It's going to be a great interview. I'm very excited to have her on. She's all over Twitter. She's a little famous, but you'll find out later.
Oh, we like famous.
Yeah. Famous teacher.
That helps the show.
Yeah.
We got a great show tonight, so let's jump right in. So there's going to be potentially a teacher strike in California. Mm-hmm. And
in LA.
And it's not completely clear. We'll let our listeners know exactly why it's happening. There seem to be a bunch of different factors, and people on both sides have strong opinions about why it should or shouldn't happen. But we know that LA Unified is one of the largest school systems in the country.
900 schools, 30,000 teachers,
Yeah.
and 600,000 students.
That is a big school system.
Yeah. Let me also say 80% free and reduced meals,
yeah.
and 20% English language learners.
Yep. So many needs there. Mostly, I guess, if you're at 80%, it's mostly a high poverty system now.
Yeah.
So the teachers are demanding what, Mr. Krabs?
Variety of things. I mean, pay raises is one of them, but I think if you ask them, that is not first and foremost, because they were offered, I think, a 6% pay raise that they rejected. Right. Yeah. So they say over class sizes are just insanely huge, and point to repeated class sizes of 45, which is an educator is really big, as well as just like a comprehensive school. So school nurses that are there more than once a week. Right. Nurses, I just said that, music and art teachers. Right. So just kind of teachers that are there every day in and out instead of traveling all across the county, which is huge. LA County's enormous. More complete schools.
And I think it's interesting. One of the things in the Sacramento Bee article that I found talked about they want to have that raise, that 6% raise. But the kicker that really sticks out to me is something that happened in Pennsylvania a bunch of years ago. They go on strike all the time up where I'm from in Northeast
PA.
Up in Pennsylvania.
I knew you were going there.
Sorry.
That's all right.
But they have their health care and their pension plan fully paid by the district.
Yeah.
Let that sink in. The teachers don't put any skin in the game.
None.
They don't pay into the system at all?
No.
It says healthcare fully paid by the district and a pension plan would be unchanged under both proposals.
This is in...
So,
right.
It's just interesting that it just doesn't look good in terms of PR. When they went on strike in Pennsylvania in a district near where I grew up, they were going to change it from 0 to something negligible.
In terms of what people paid in?
Correct.
Okay.
Instead of 100% paid by the district, the teachers would have some sort of input, and they would be paying into it to some degree. And it made the teachers look selfish.
Interesting.
Yeah.
So let's zoom out, though, because this is it's a little bit more complex than just locally and LA Unified. This is a larger state issue in California.
Some really interesting sub-issues in there.
So California now is, after this booming economy that we've had over the last few years, is rolling in the dough at the state level, apparently.
Yeah.
With, of course, the expectation that there are going to be entitlements that they're going to have to pay for in the future. But they do have a lot of money. They're in the black. Mm-hmm. And apparently LA Unified, or even systems all across California, are woefully underfunded at the state level. What's that about?
So the little bit of reading that I did, so in 1978, California passed Proposition 13. And what that did is it capped property taxes at 1% of an assessed value for that. So what this has served to do is really restrict the amount of money that inflow into California's coffers. Now, I guess you could say, well, doesn't every system in the county, in the state deal with that? But what some districts have gotten away with doing is something called a parcel tax, where it's just a tax. They're just like, everybody who owns something pays X amount, regardless of whether you have a one-room shack or a 100-room palatial mansion. And so what's happened is that more affluent suburbs are able to make up for the gap in state funding by doing a parcel tax.
Right.
So
at the local level.
Correct.
Right.
Taxing, funding their schools as much as they want.
Right.
LA Unified, 80% poverty is not able to do that.
The tax base is not
correct.
there. Yeah.
Correct.
So, and I mean, it's interesting too with California as a bastion of liberalism and kind of progressivism as it relates to education and other social issues. They because of Prop 13 underspend to this day. I mean, Prop 13 was what year, Mr. Graves?
78.
78.
Yeah.
So 40 years ago.
Yeah.
And so it has had long-term effects on their ability to fund education adequately. I think it said that, what are they? They're at per pupil. They're at half of what New York is.
Yeah, 11,000 per pupil.
I mean, I feel like in Maryland, 11,000 is in the rearview mirror from a long time ago.
Years ago.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So they're gonna. I just can't understand why they can't do something about Prop 13. But you're the political science expert.
Well, just historically, they don't overturn propositions. Propositions just don't get. It costs a lot of money. A lot of special interests and stuff like that. So typically what you see in California, the propositions that get put forward are those that have some sort of backing strongly on one side or the other, who are really able to do the signatures and then, the billboards or however else they're getting out for their position. And then, people do need to show up on election day to actually have their voices heard, which, is not exactly a strength always in this country, is for everyone to show up on election day and vote one way or the other.
So this is financial, but some of it is political because in the article in the Los Angeles Times that we read, who's it by? Sonali Kull from January 9th, 2019. There is definitely a part of this that's related to charter schools and choice. Sounds like the union feels very strongly that members of the board and the superintendent are pro-charter and have been willing to funnel money away from public schools into the charters, and which has hurt the public schools.
And one thing, I was listening to our interview with Zaretta Hammond.
Yes,
our podcast interview
back in the good
back
old
in
days.
the day, and we were talking about private schools, and I was.
Railing on them
on private schools.
God, that was like the theme of season 1.
It was, and I made a comment that made me cringe a little bit, but now I don't care anymore. But it was basically that private schools are funneling away children from the public school system in a way that is obviously detrimental to our coffers, but it's also it's detrimental to the quality of education that kids are getting, because people's idea of a public education is diminishing. And one of the things that they mentioned in one of the articles that
why is it? I don't. Whoa! I don't get. If you're putting kids in a private school, why does that diminish people's perceptions of the value of a public education?
Let me answer that in a minute.
That you can't.
I'm going to, because let me get to my point. Stop interrupting me.
What?
In the article itself, it talks about how there are wealthy and white families who are moving away from public schools and putting their children into private schools.
Right.
So the more that we have that go out, there's going to be less and less people that want to put in or feel okay with paying higher taxes for public education. Therefore, the importance of a public education is therefore going to be diminished, because why do I need to pay for that if I have my kids going into private school?
Yeah, but that argument doesn't hold water in LA or in California, because taxes are capped anyway. Property taxes are capped, so they're not asking
So the
to
rich,
pay in more.
Right.
Everybody pays in 1%.
I understand that, but if in the event that they try to raise taxes or try to change the funding formulas for how schools are funded in California, I would imagine that would be in play in terms of how people treat that political argument.
But this is not about private schools. Is it about private schools?
I think it's about private schools. I think private schools have a very big say. If you have all these, if we start trying to change the funding formulas, the people that are sending their kids to private schools are going to have a major say in this, because they're probably the same people that have power politically, socially, whatever in a community. They're the people that are connected. They know the connections. They know the people that are connected to...
Money talks, baby.
Right.
Yeah, I don't know. I think there's a lot of assumptions in there. I mean,
he just made a very mean face.
They did.
Yeah. Come on.
But I'm just saying, and I have not seen any particular numbers associated with dollars that are funneled away from public schools in California. I do know from the union's point of view that, yes, they do say that essentially that charter schools are allowed to cherry pick students away from the public school system. So it sounds like one of the things that they want, it's not the closure of charter schools, it's the regulation of charter schools, so they can't just pick and choose and say, like we've talked about in Michigan, where like, you high need student, I'm not going to take you, but you with X, Y, Z test scores, I will take you. Right. So certainly that is, I think, a big time problem. Right. And again, I just don't know enough about school funding in terms of reliability and how that affects schools from one year to the next, in terms of planning based on a specific amount of money that they're getting.
And I would argue just that instead of blaming private schools, the state is responsible for Proposition 13. The citizens of the state supported that back in 1978, but one could argue that Prop 13 over time undermined public schools.
Yeah.
Not private schools.
Yeah. If Nick Melvoin, the vice president of the LA Board of Education, is like, you can strike on us all you want.
Right.
Yeah, sure. He was like, but 90% of our funding comes from Sacramento.
Right.
So let's go to Sacramento. He said, I'll march there with you.
Right.
You want more money, then we need to go to the state and ask them for money. This is not LA County withholding money from you.
Yeah.
Right. All right. Well, stay tuned. Looks like we'll have another strike to talk about. We've had, what number is this, Mr. Sids? You've kept count over the last 2 years, at least half dozen, right?
Yep.
All right. So, and this would be a big one.
Yeah.
As of right now,
30,000 teachers.
Right.
First one that's in a very liberal area.
Yeah, which is a whole new interesting dynamic. Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Yep. All right, folks. If you want to find links to these articles, Mr. Siddons will be tweeting them out, or has already
in the show notes.
It'll be in the show notes.
The show notes there, don't know.
Your show notes are very, very complete. Don't go away. When we come back, we will have special guest
Erica Buddington.
All right, thanks, folks. All right, welcome back, folks. We are incredibly excited to have Erica Buddington on Ed's Not Dead, aren't we, Case?
Yeah.
All right.
The Twitter world is abuzz. It's going to be.
It's going to be, yeah. Once folks know that we have Erica on. Erica, how you doing?
I'm good. How are you?
Good. Welcome to Ed's Not Dead. Erica is a dean of students at a Bushwick Middle School, HBO Def Jam Poet, author, YouTube sensation, and overall educator-extraordinaire from Brooklyn, New York. She's in good old Brooklyn right now as we speak. Erica is also the chief curriculum officer for the Langston League, a culturally responsive, relevant curriculum design firm that specializes in student workshops, professional development sessions, and more. The Langston League is a team of unconventional educators seeking to address educational and opportunistic inequalities in at-promise neighborhoods through culturally relevant, responsive, fun, and equitable curriculum. The League's primary focus is literacy infused with, help me out here, somebody, steamed.
You got it.
Okay, did I get that right, Erica? Okay, you're gonna tell us what that's about anyway. Elements, science, technology, engineering, arts, mathematics, and the D is design. So, Erica, welcome again. We're really excited to have you on Ed's Not Dead.
I'm excited to be here.
Okay.
Thank you for having me.
Our pleasure. So let's jump right in. Let's start with the Langston League. Tell us about the Langston League. What are your goals? And what should schools and teachers know about when bringing your team on board, if they do?
Oh, so we're a group of really passionate educators, and our goal is very simple. We want to help organizations design instructional material for staff and students that are responsive to the cultural needs of their students. And when I say cultural, I don't just mean where scholars are from, but I mean the diaspora, learning styles, their demographic, social emotional learning aspect, the learning partnership between the educator and scholar, and, their most prevalent needs. And so if you're bringing us on board, nothing is a secret. Everything is transparent. We immerse ourselves in your schools. We observe everything. And then we have this full-on consultation with your staff, with a focus group of students and the administrators to really talk about outcomes so that we can create, innovate or redesign this inclusive, engaging, and evolving instructional material that you've been envisioning this entire time. And so really, if you want to bring us on board to do professional development, facilitate youth workshop or panel, or to design curriculum, you should just know that we're going to be all up in your business.
Awesome.
That's the way to be.
That's awesome.
So the focus of the curriculum is through elements of STEAM, as we just said. So what does it look like, sound like, maybe like any examples, and why the addition of design to kind of the old STEAM, I guess?
Yeah, so we wanted our curriculum to be interdisciplinary. And so Langston League is split into two cohorts. One of our cohorts, they're experts in their field. So we have an architecture, an engineering, an urban gardening, a UX design, and coding specialist, right? And the other cohort are experienced educators that have been in the field and have very interesting strategies that range from gamification to narrative storytelling. And they partner on projects to build out something that is very interdisciplinary. We wanted to place an emphasis on STEM because, of course, the percentage of low-income youth and girls is really low when it comes to bringing them up the pipeline in that regard.
Yeah.
And so we wanted to make sure that even though we are primarily on the other side, most of the educators here are history and ELA educators, that we added aspects of art and design as well to our curriculum. And so what that looks like is we designed for Google Code Next, for example. We designed a leadership curriculum teaching students how to be digital citizens. And there are a lot of ideation moments, engineering moments where scholars are using high order thinking and mathematics, even though it is a social emotional curriculum. So
that's awesome.
Kind of what it looks like.
And I think it's great how you're adding in, and correct me if I'm wrong, it seems like you're adding in different elements so you can basically get a wider array of students interested in and really and schools interested in what you're trying to do, right?
Yeah, it's a bridge. It's really a bridge.
So one of the things on the League's website, you talk about the curriculum focuses on what you call scholars and not systems. Build upon what you're just talking about with the addition of design and STEAM as a whole. How does the traditional curriculum compare to what you're trying to do with schools?
So a lot of what we believe in, it's unconventional, and I won't say this because I'm not going to get myself in trouble today. But
oh no, you say that.
There are certain schools that have scripted curriculum, and they're very by the book. They literally live by manual, and they don't believe in utilizing scholar context to modify. And so when we run into that, when we started working on the Langston League, we were running into that a lot. Principals who were handing us Teach Like a Champion, who were handing us a responsive classroom book. And all of those are great texts and have great aspects, but there's no book or edu-fad that can encompass what your scholars need, like that, all of what your scholars need, right? And so that was what we mean by placing emphasis on scholars and not systems.
Right.
And so when we created the way in which we take on a client, we really agreed that there had to be a full-on immersion so that we could really get to know students and build out something for that particular cohort or for that particular organization. And so we had a school that came to us. We wanted to design a history curriculum that was decolonized and would engage their scholars because they were having difficulty in sheer text and ELA. And I remember, pitching them the first lesson, and everyone in the room looked at us like we were crazy. It was a lesson on Weeksville. It was a lesson on Weeksville in Brooklyn, which is one of the first free towns in the United States. And at the end of the lesson, the exit ticket was literally the students become archaeologists. They're like buckets of soil with artifacts in like plastic bags in the end, and they like pull them out with their hands and write down the information into a graphic organizer. And the principal was like, what? So we're like, yep.
Yeah, this is it.
Like, this is your exit ticket. We're going to do this once a week on your flex days. And so we did it for 6 weeks. And like the engagement was insane. The exit ticket scores were really high. And the principal called us and said, I have no idea why that worked, but it did. And we have a really great relationship with that school. So that's what we mean by scholars not systems. We noticed that they had a lot of scholars who had social learning style, and they had to be hands-on or kinesthetic. They had to move. And so, we took that profile into consideration when building out their lessons.
So a couple months ago, maybe a year ago at this point, I wrote a piece for our website called "Curriculum is Not the Answer."
It was a big bummer.
Yeah.
Anyway.
But so I think where I was at that time, and what I essentially argued was that, it came down a lot to individuals in the classroom, in terms of teachers, I should say, individual teachers, and getting kids to believe in them and what they were selling. And I guess what I was saying is there was no curriculum that could make a sort of, like a fake teacher that the kids didn't believe in. Like all of a sudden they're like, oh no, you're great. So I guess my question is, where did I go wrong? Tell me that. And two, like, where is that intersection of teachers and individuals and curriculum? Like, where is that sweet spot?
I mean, we had to, that's the first conversation that we have, because people often conflate like cultural responsiveness and relevance. Like, you can be relevant. It doesn't mean that you're being responsive to that particular individual. Right. And so we have to sit with clients and let them know that, at the end of the day, we can write the most amazing, intriguing curriculum. If your educators are not engaging, if they're not giving scholars voice, if there's no differentiation, if there isn't access, if there isn't connection, if there isn't a social justice aspect, if there isn't gamification, if your educator is not a great storyteller or has something that is pulling the scholars in, the kids are going to be bored. We let them know that.
Right.
And so it's important that when anyone gets curriculum from us, that we put on a full-on professional development to show them how we enact the curriculum. And we also make sure that we stay around a while. We're not just going to give you the packet and bounce. Like, we're there for a few weeks. We're watching, we're coaching, right? And hopefully, most of the time, administrators pick up on what we do, and then they carry on the work. And so that, for me, is the intersection, is like really internalizing what you're teaching, falling in love with it, so that because ultimately the kids love what we love. Right.
Yeah.
Right.
And so,
true.
Yeah, that's what it is. Right. And so we create, really, I would say, the instructional material that we create, it's fun for the teachers, which is why the kids really enjoy it.
And I say this to my new teachers all the time, where it's, if you're not having fun with it, the kids they smell it, they know it. Yeah. They know that you're not having fun. They know that you think it's boring. So you gotta make it exciting for them.
And yet we do everything we can to suck the joy out of teaching.
That's usually something that I say.
All right. Okay. So you got me all fired up, Erica, listening to you. It's exciting.
We could have had her on the show about the passion. Teaching is teaching a passion.
Yes,
we could be talking about that.
Yep. So
many questions.
So I'm picking up that a part of what you do, or the Langston League does, is is really kind of school reform in some ways. So what other kind of elements go along with this? I'm curious. Do you the work that you do with schools, is it about how teachers are arranged and how they collaborate with one another, how kids are grouped? I mean, are there other implications for organizational structures and the way that schools are set up that you guys get into that the Langston League has an impact on?
So absolutely. There's definitely been instructional material we've created that required educators that don't necessarily work together or don't normally work together to work together.
Right.
And so if we're creating the history of music, right, we'll have the history teacher and the music teacher work together. And we'll have to push the principal to create a prep block for them to internalize this work, right? Mm-hmm. When it comes to differentiating, we have to, one of the craziest things that we had to design this year was seating arrangements and the explanation of them in a very gamified way. So the runway, putting on a show and the clusters, things that you think are common knowledge for teachers. But when you have all of these teacher programs churning out educators who are internalizing the same text, and they kind of forget what got them to this, I want to teach place in the first place, right? Because we all want to teach because somebody gave us this incredible lesson. We're I want to do that. And somewhere along the line, it gets lost, right?
It wasn't because we were sitting in rows, bored out of our minds, right?
Exactly.
Yeah. I shared that with all my teachers, by the way, all the seating charts you tweeted.
Yeah.
Those
were, I saw those. Those were amazing, Erica. Yeah. Anyway, sorry, we interrupted you. Go ahead.
It's okay. But, it was because my junior year, my teacher, Mr. Bowman, taught Night by Eli Wiesel and, stood on his desk and read passages in this really passionate voice. And I was like, oh, I want to do that, right? And I never lost sight of that. But then when I coach educators, I realized that they lose sight of it. And so we have to teach these basic things, right, to kind of get them to understand the reason why the curriculum isn't working. Sometimes it's not because you're boring. It's not because it's not engaging. But you can even actively monitor because you can't get through your classroom, right? Your desk will create simple things sometimes will rectify. So it varies, which is why we have to immerse ourselves.
Right. And so let me kind of back way out here, and you can just totally say if I'm way off base, but it sounds like one of the things that you guys do and maybe advocate for is super decentralization of curriculum and working with schools, where each school is really reflective of the immediate community that it's based in, and the students that it serves. Is that correct?
Yes.
Yeah. So, the learning is in the scholar, not in the system, right?
Mm-hmm.
Right.
Yeah.
So let's back out. I mean, is that a sort of approach, whether it's within New York City, New York State, nationally, that you would advocate for, is just kind of the backing off generally of whether it's the Department of Education or state education departments to really give lots of control to individual schools? I mean, have you guys thought or talked about that at all?
I mean, we haven't. We've been approached by a few state departments of education, and then we get into those meetings. We get into a lot of discussions where we don't agree on a lot of things. Mm-hmm. But I would say that that's what's worked for us. When we see our scores go up, it's because we've immersed ourselves in a school and created instructional material and, not systems, but, we've revolutionized a room or the way a teacher instructs based on the kids, right? So what they're excited about, what they'd like to learn, where they're from. We go into schools and, the percentage of Latinx students will be 90%, and there is nothing to reflect who they are in the central text, on the wall, and there's no Hispanic heritage, and there's not. And I'm like, how is this possible? You want me to engage, and you have nothing that reflects who I am in any regard, right? Not even an affirmation with a Spanish word or two. Come on, right? And so that's where we come in, and administrators have a difficult time hearing that. But when they hear it, and you see the percentage, we have the focus groups, and we bring back our report. It's a reality that most of, I would say about 99% of the administrators say, wow, you guys are right.
So
We need to fix that.
So the inevitable question is when you're sitting with those suits or you're in those meetings or you're just working with a school who obviously they want to produce better outcomes. They want kids to learn more. Talk a little bit about when all goes right. What kind of outcomes have you seen produced?
So I would say about 90% of our clients have seen an increase on several different things. So school culture, right? We had a school that we went into, we designed 2 workshops. One workshop was about a new student orientation workshop because they were a pipeline charter that removed a lot of students. Like, I don't know if removed, but maybe the kids moved or what have you. And we realized that their issue was they had all these new students coming in from different schools in that city. And the pipeline students were there was some tension between the new students. And we're like, okay, so you've created all of this culture and these systems and these signals for these kids. And then you throw new kids into the mix. They have no orientation. They have no idea how these systems work. Right. And, the principal was like, oh, you're right. So we had to create like an onboarding for the kids where they sit with the counselor. They had like a small group. They had a peer that introduced them to the school for 2 weeks and taught them different things. And the suspension I would say about 65% of the suspensions were the new students. It went all the way down to like 11% by the end of that year.
So before Casey gets to his quiz show, which we have no idea what he's going to ask you, by the way, I'd also like to point out that Robbie just referred to you sitting with administrators as suits. And I'm like, that's totally Robbie.
No, she was talking about the higher level people than principals. Anyway,
so you're not a suit, is what you're saying.
I will not classify myself.
Just wanted to make sure.
Okay.
All right, Casey.
All right, Casey. Go.
So Erica, first of all, thanks for coming on the show, and we're very happy to have you here. And so Erica, you became a famous YouTube star when you covered the Bodak Yellow song by Cardi B. Okay.
Oh, now my daughter loves Cardi B.
It's she sings it with her kids. It's the best thing on the face of the earth.
Okay.
So we want to know, or I want to know, how much do you know about not Bodak but Eastman Kodak Company? The now ubiquitous and once bankrupt camera and film company.
Oh.
So I have 3 questions.
Kodak.
That's right.
Kodak.
I have 3 questions for you. I said Eastman because there's a question about Eastman. Anyway, so number 1, where did the name Kodak come from? And I have multiple choice for you. I don't give it to my co-host. Okay. The original founder of Kodak was a major fan of Dungeons and Dragons, especially the character Bodak. That's A. Is it B? The name Kodak is meaningless and was chosen because it was impossible to mispronounce and dissimilar to any existing words. Or is it C? George Eastman, one of the founders, was born and raised in Kodiak, Alaska, but when he filed for his copyright, the patent clerk spelled it incorrectly.
You can phone a friend. Because Crable and I have no idea.
One of them was like, it came out of nowhere. I really feel like that's what it was.
That's B. That Kodak name is meaningless. That's correct.
Hey,
completely meaningless.
There you go.
Well done.
Well
done.
I thought it was a person.
Right.
Bob Kodak.
It's not. Number 2.
Tell me that these last 2 are going to be shorter. Go ahead. Okay.
You are such a Debbie Downer. I'm going to kick you out of your own house.
There you go.
Number 2. When World War I broke out, George Eastman, the founder of Kodak, helped the military by making what? Is it A, unbreakable lenses for airplane photography, B, unbreakable lenses for gas masks, or C, unbreakable lenses for kaleidoscopes?
Those are good ones.
Okay, let me get those one more time.
Unbreakable lenses for airline photography, unbreakable lenses for gas masks, or unbreakable lenses for kaleidoscopes?
Airline photography.
Ooh, close.
Gas masks.
Gas masks. He did develop some photography for airplanes. Anyway, you know.
All right,
okay,
here we go.
you have one more chance to get 2 out of 3.
Okay.
There's a lot of money involved
That's
here.
right, a lot of money, a lot of prizes. Number 3, which musician wrote a song called Kodachrome about the film of the same name? in 1973. It made number 9 in the U.S. charts.
Oh, and I will give you a hint. Can I give Erica a hint?
No. A, Paul Simon. B, Nina Simone. Or C, the Pointer Sisters.
Oh, Paul Simon, because I know Pointer Sisters.
That is correct.
Right, Erica.
You won. 2 out of 3.
She got the New Yorker there at the end.
Very nicely done.
The Pointer Sisters. Man, I haven't thought about them in forever.
I had to just search up random people from the 70s.
They had like an awesome song. I thought it was like the early 80s.
The Pointer Sisters?
Yeah.
They had more than one.
Yeah, I'm just thinking, I had a tape of theirs.
They're young millennials. Erica.
Erica's at my age.
I know, she is. Right.
So, Erica, thank you so much for coming on and dealing with that quiz, especially for me. That was very special for me, so I appreciate it. I threw it on the co-hosts. They didn't know. Yeah. So.
All right.
I'm glad I passed.
Yes, you did.
You did an outstanding job. Erica, for our listeners, where can people find you and follow you and get the full thrust of all that you're doing in education?
Oh, Twitter.com/Erica Buddington or Twitter.com/Langston League.
Okay.
So make sure you follow.
Yep. If you're not following, start following Erica Buddington. She's amazing, and we're going to get you back on the show in the future. Thanks again, Erica. We'll talk to you soon.
Thank you.
All right, fellas. She was amazing.
Yeah. Great interview.
Great interview.
Good job, Mr. Sids.
You know,
you are the king.
Even the squirrel gets the nut. Sometimes.
I was going to say interviewer.
It's even a blind squirrel can sometimes find a nut.
You know, I knew you use that phrase a lot.
I do use it a lot. I got to find a new one.
Does he use that one a lot?
I do.
I've heard it a bunch of times.
What are phrases that I use a lot, Mr. Siddons?
You know what?
I do that.
You know what?
That's usually when I'm annoyed with you.
I don't think you have any like really go-to. I'm sure you do. I can't think of any right now.
We made a whole collage. You made an app for it.
Yeah, there's an app out there called Smash Mr. Dodd.
Smash Mr. Dodd.
Remember when I went through my Gestalt phase?
Yeah, yeah.
Was that annoying?
So here's the real Gestalt. You're like so phlegmy about it.
The Frankenstinger. The Gestalt.
Yes. I still don't know what it means after 5
either.
years of him saying it.
So as we were interviewing Erica,
Yes.
I had a thought when we talked about scholars, not students, which I really liked.
Yes.
That resonated with me.
Mm-hmm.
I wrote a note to Mr. Sids over here about Project Success, standing for Student Unified Curriculum, which I've always thought really meant unifying the curriculum in the kids. The kids are the curriculum.
Mm-hmm.
Tying it kind of weaving all of the outside into the inside of kids, right?
Yeah.
It's their lives, and that's what I heard her saying. Is that what you guys were thinking?
Absolutely.
Okay.
Absolutely.
It's a curriculum that's completely intertwined with who they are as people.
Right.
And what they need.
You just said it much better than I did. Yeah. And I think maybe that's the way of the future. That turns education on its head. Because
it's like hyper localized.
It is hyper localized. Yeah. It's in the kid. It's in the classroom. And then I guess to a degree, we didn't talk quite as much about teachers with her. And what that means for, she did kind of answer you about there is that intersection between the teacher having to be a viable kind of figure in the classroom, but she really focused on, it seems like it focuses on kids.
Yeah. I think one of the things she said too, I mean, is the teacher kind of being interested in
the kids.
Well, in the kids and what you're doing, and just, you're not a robot.
That's true.
You
gotta love what you're teaching.
and look, we're giving you some dynamic stuff to do.
Right.
Yeah.
Go collect some
Are they teaching
bags
passion?
of soil.
Are they teaching passion?
Oh, jeez.
Well,
I want to know more about like how do they do that? How do they teach teachers to love the content they're teaching?
The one thing I will say that
Maybe it's a loaded question.
that has happened to me over the years occasionally, that I don't get a lot of emails or messages on Facebook or LinkedIn from students that I had 20 years ago telling me they loved the way I taught them equivalent fractions. It's usually about what I was excited about in the classroom that got them excited.
Yeah.
That's what she was.
Or
that's
like
what
the
she
day
was
you
talking
brought
about.
in all the snakes.
Oh yeah, that I had the snapping turtle.
Yeah, that's what they remember.
Yeah, I know.
Which is just so funny because you're like, this is so important. You have to learn this. In 20 years, they're like, That turtle was so sweet, man.
I know. And they don't really care about the other
Yeah,
stuff.
yeah.
Interesting. Anyway, she was a great guest, and she's got a bright future, and we're going to get her back on the show.
Absolutely.
All right, fellas. It's been a great episode. It's great to see you back in the saddle.
Yeah.
All right.
Yes. Great.
I thought you were going to say something else after that.
I was just agreeing.
Okay. And I'm confused about whether we're signing off.
We're signing off. Yeah,
Okay,
this is the episode.
I should be able to do this because
This is a hark back episode.
I'm supposed to be the straight guy on the show, but it doesn't always work that way.
Yeah.
Anyway. All right, folks, thanks for tuning in. You can find me at RW Dodd, Mr. Crable at Peter Crable, CH Siddons, and of course at Ed's Not Dead PC. Check us out on our website, on Facebook. Shoot us a message, leave us feedback, give us a rating, and we'll play it on the show. Thanks as always. We'll talk to you soon.